I am on a mission to build the best underground base on YouTube, and to continue this project, I have built a giant underground zoo in my base. This holds every animal in the game, such as the wolves, horses, a walk-through aquarium, and so many more. So get yourself comfy, as this is a long one today. First things first is clearing a room for the entrance. So I set up a beacon and got straight to work. I had absolutely zero plans for this build whatsoever. I'm literally just going with the flow. But now that we've got a starting room, I wanted tunnels either side as if it's an indoor enclosure where they will both meet as one to the main zoo area. So let's get digging. Before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much for the support on the last episode. It really means a lot to me. I'm just wondering, why is there 99.3% of people unsubscribed? Please subscribe and like and comment, it helps me out massively. Alright, let's get back into it. Now that the two tunnels have finally met one spot, this is where the digging really starts. But before I finished that, I got bored. So I wanted a sign at the front saying zoo, but for some reason my stupid brain couldn't figure out how to make a Z. So that'll do for now. After that mess, let's carry on with the digging. After a little bit of mining, I finally got the first layer done. Now it was time to dig it out higher, as I had a plan for what I wanted the ceiling to look like, but to save you from more digging time lapses, I know you guys love them really, here it is finished. Now it's time to start on designing the first tunnel. This is the first one you're going to walk through, as this is the entrance, and the other one will be the exit that you walk back through. I wanted this to feel like an indoor enclosure where animals such as spiders and snakes would be captured, there for show. So I've gone for a more darker theme, which I think looks quite good. And as you make your way down, you will come to the first two enclosures where the spiders will be. And then, I'm not going to bore you with this, let's speed this build up a little bit. And finally, with a dirt textured path and some black stained glass placed, the first tunnel was complete. So I grabbed some name tags, and as you could probably tell by the name, I got capturing my first animal. And I know technically spiders are mobs, but I thought a spider enclosure is a perfect fit in here. And finally, after taking these babies home, it was finally complete. Next up, it was time for the last two enclosures of this tunnel, which I needed to head over to the Nether for some materials, and this allowed me to get work on number 2 and 3. The first one is going to have a lava lake in the middle, with some standard Nether decorations around the outside, which honestly, it looks like someone's just spawned the Nether in here, I'm not going to lie to you. Building skills are definitely getting better lately, let me know what you think. Spider one probably could have done with a bit more work, but we'll move on from that one. Before we capture any more animals for that enclosure, we're going to head back over to the Nether to collect some more materials. As for number 3, I needed some crimson blocks for this design, as well as getting bullied by the hoglins. But little did they know, they're the ones that are going to be trapped forever. And obviously, I started the decorating. I just placed some of this netherrack down with a couple of customised trees dotted around, added a few lighting, couple of stuff along the floor, and boom, just like that, you've got a fully decorated enclosure. The other one is going to consist of a few Tinchies. If you don't know who Tinchy is, it's Tinchy Strider, which I didn't realise I actually needed a fishing rod to ride. So I quickly just crafted one up. And, hold on a second, where do you think you're going, you little shit? Come back here, you little Sorry about that. Now that we've got him, we can just walk him back through our tunnel. Luckily, these are quite easy, as you can just ride them. And we could just walk him straight into the enclosure. So, without wasting any more time, we quickly went back to the Nether and grabbed the last one that we needed. Now onto the last Nether animal, and the last animal for this tunnel is the hoglins. These ones were a bit of a pain in the arse, and this ghast almost killed my poor hoglin, little bastard. But we make it through the Nether, and trying to get him into the actual enclosure was a pain in the arse, but after a bit of gentle persuasion, I finally had both of them in.
Trapped forever.
Now that the first tunnel is complete, I guess I better carry on with the digging. I wanted to go even higher than I already have dug, but obviously I can't reach it. So I quickly just went over to my bamboo farm. Oh, I can't really say bamboo farm, can I? It's just a bunch of bamboo. And I made a couple of shulkers of scaffolding. And I covered the room as high as I can. And then I could dig up as much as I possibly can, which I think is 5 blocks above you. And, achoo! Sorry about that. And after hours, I'm embarrassed to say it, hours of digging that room out to the height that I want, it's now time to finally start decorating the ceiling. And what I had in mind was I wanted to feel like the sky and clouds, so I used sea lanterns with white stained glass to be the clouds, and then the rest as blue concrete, which turns out to be the sky. So let's get building. And to save you the hours it took me to do that as well, I've cut it down for 3 seconds. Next up, I started to place some pink wool around because, like I said, I had absolutely zero plans for this build. So I just wanted to work out where each animal is going to go. And I also didn't want it to just be a square room. So I roughed the walls out a little bit, went into some of the walls, went down on some of it for the wolf enclosure, etc. And yeah, so now I have a full plan of what I'm going to do. We can finally start building. And I thought I'd start nice and easy. So I collected a couple of different types of wood. And I wanted to start with the farm animals. So the cows, sheep, chickens and pigs. So first thing I'd done was build this sort of farmhouse in the back. Then I added some fencing going around so the people can come up quite close and look and even pet the animals. Then I started with the grass as the floor. And then I may have got interrupted by these bastards.
Huh?
Then I went round, added some lighting on the floor and covered it with carpet. I wanted it to feel more like a farm, so I added a little wheat farm going around the front. I then added a few more decorations on the house and throughout. And after that, it was near enough done. Now let's move on to the camel enclosure. So I got some dried, whatever you call that, some sand. And it's a very basic build, this one. I didn't go too fancy with it. I built a little wall going around so they can't escape. A little bit of sand, some cactus, and that was pretty much it. With them two now completed, I started on the panda enclosure. Obviously, started with some lighting on the floor. And pandas are from the jungle, so this mainly consisted of jungle trees, some bamboo, a little pond for them to bathe in, or swim in, probably not deep enough for that, and as well as some texturing on the floor. And after finally blocking it off with glass so they can't escape, it was done. To save myself from boredom, I wanted to build a couple of enclosures at a time and then collect the animals for them enclosures, then move on to a couple more, so on and so forth. But before I collect the animals for these 3 enclosures, I thought I'd start on the path. And I've never really built a path like this before. I usually just toe the grass and that would do. But I thought I'd go for a more textured one. I used some coarse dirt, some gravel, a few lanterns in there, some normal dirt, and just a mixture of different things. And personally, I feel like it's turned out quite nice. I have kept with this design throughout the whole video, as you will see later on. But yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Now it's time to start collecting some of the animals. I started with the farm animals, which was quite easy as they did all spawn very close to the base. All I had to do was just drag them down into the hole. I started with 2 sheep, 2 chickens, 2 pigs and 2 cows. Just nice and easy, and then I could breed them up if I ever wanted more. Next up, I then headed over to the jungle for the pandas, where on the way I did manage to find a few parrots, which definitely saved me a journey later on in the video. And these pandas were a pain in the arse. I didn't realise how slow and stupid they actually were. This was very painful to do.
Stupid.
No, not.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
You stupid.
But eventually I did finally get them back to the enclosure and made sure they would never see the light of day ever again. Oh, and as well as all my farm animals escaping. After this, I headed over to the desert to look for the camels, and luckily, straight from the portal, I did find 2 fairly quickly. And honestly, never realised how quick these guys were. I thought they would be slow as fuck personally. They're quite large animals, but you know. As it was quite a while away, I decided they should go for a little fly.
I believe I can fly.
And now they're finally happy in their new home, and this is what we've got so far. Now let's work on the horses. For this, I wanted it to mainly be a stable, so I needed to clear some more ceiling above and carry on with the sky design that I previously done for the rest of the build. And basically, I just started placing some blocks, hoping it would turn out to look something like a stable. Once the main frame was done, I used some stone brick slabs as a path along the front and a mixture of coarse dirt and normal dirt as the floor, and with some more decorations, this is the finished build. Now, all we need to do is drag some more horses down the hole and also trap them forever. Next up is the frogs. I've never gotten frogs or used frogs in this game before, so I didn't really know what to build for them. I had some mangrove logs and slabs and thought it would fit nicely for the frogs, which I think in the end it does turn out quite nice, but I honestly had no clue what I was doing here. I just started placing some random blocks, and as it wasn't a square or a rectangle, it weren't really looking the best, but I think it turned out quite nicely. I built a little pond with some mud around the edges and some decorations inside, and a textured floor going around, some glass walls going all the way around so you can look into it, and eventually I do put a roof on top because I didn't realise how high they fucking jump, and yeah, it is somewhat complete. Now, for the fox and wolf enclosure, I wanted it to be in the ground so you can look down on them, as you would in normal zoos. So I thought I'd build this little staircase down to both of them, where you could see through a glass wall more at their level. So I built these two right next to each other to kill two birds with one stone. Now with that done, I thought I'd get started on the fox enclosure. This one, personally, is probably one of my favourite builds. I started with some spruce logs going all the way around as the walls, and then started stripping every other one. I then added a mixture of dirt floor with a little hole in the middle, as foxes like to hide in holes. And then after adding some greenery around and some decorations, honestly, I really like how this one has turned out. But that's enough glazing for one video. Now, let's go on to the bees. This one, I started very basic with a few grass hills and a little river going down the edge with a slight little pond at the end. I thought that was a nice little touch, and then I added some birch trees, as I think bees are more attracted to birch trees. I could be completely wrong there, but I thought, why not? And I added a few more decorations like bamboo and melons just to bring this build together. But obviously, bees, honey, all of that stuff, the main part of this build is lots and lots of flowers. After placing every flower I had in my storage system, for the front of this enclosure I had a plan. I didn't want it to be just a basic glass wall like the rest of my builds have been, so I went over to my bee farm and I grabbed some honey blocks and I basically tried to create a honeycomb wall. Honestly, didn't know how this was going to turn out and accidentally created a honey heart at the same time, but after adding some yellow glass in between, I think it wasn't a bad effort, if you look at it very carefully. Now, in Minecraft, there are three types of frogs. You have the warm frogs, which spawn in places like jungle or mangrove swamps. You have the cold frogs, which spawn in snowy areas. And the temperate frogs, which spawn near rivers or forests. So, we had to spend a bit of time searching many biomes to find at least two of each kind. But at least this one is done now. For the bees, I already had my honey farm, which I just showed previously, so I waited for the sun to go down and just borrowed some from there. And finally, for the foxes, these little fuckers are so quick, even Usain Bolt would struggle to keep up with these.
Yo, you wanna see some real speed, bitch? I'll show you some real speed.
Eventually, I managed to get both of them on a lead and dragged them all the way back home, but fucking hell, this was hard work. I did also breed them up just in case, because if I lost one, I would be very upset. So that is another 3 enclosures done. And I feel like it's really starting to take some shape now, which I wasn't sure if it was going to or not. As I said, I had zero plans for this whatsoever. But yeah, next up is the wolf enclosure. Now for this wolf enclosure. All I had in mind was the wolves being in a hole, like so, with a little river running through the middle, so that's exactly what I started with. I dug this little hole out and added some dirt on the bottom, as rivers do, but I didn't want it all to be flat, so I added a bit of height to one side of the stone, so the water will run down into the main river part as sort of like a little cliff edge. Then once I had filled it all up with water, I then textured the floor with some grass and some coarse dirt, added some more gradient and texturing to the walls. I then placed down a couple of spruce trees. Then after adding some final decorations like lighting and this little wall around the top, it was fully complete. And at this point, my rocket box was looking very bare. So let's just quickly fix that. Now it's time for the goat enclosure, and for this I wanted a snowy mountain sort of theme, as that is where they can mainly be found. So I went over to my snowy mountain close to the base, where luckily the goats are later on for me to collect, and I grabbed some snow blocks and some ice, and I got straight into building. I wanted the mountain part to be the main thing in this enclosure, as they are known for sitting on edges of cliffs or mountains. And after quickly building this up, I still had some snow and ice left over, so I moved on to the little small polar bear enclosure that I was building also, which it is quite a basic one, just with a little frozen lake in the middle of it. And then I went back to the goat enclosure and added some glass to the wall. But this time I'd done it from floor to ceiling because I never realised that they can jump really high in this game. So better that safe than sorry. Now it's time to collect some of the animals. I started with the goats as I knew where they were straight away. Like I said, they were in the snowy mountains quite close to my base. The only thing annoying about this was them fucking snow blocks. I kept getting stuck in them. The goats kept getting stuck in them. But after a little bit of messing around, I finally got them out and into their enclosure. I then headed over to the frozen biome, which is actually right next to my guardian farm, so I already had a portal set up there ready, and these bastards absolutely hated me. But after getting them back, they were fine with me. I don't know why, very strange, never really used polar bears in this game, so I didn't know that was going to happen. All they wanted to do was kill me the whole way home. After this, I ended up completing the path as I got a bit fed up of just collecting animals and building enclosures, which I think has really rounded up this build quite nicely. I think it is a really nice design which I've made. I know I'm not the first person to obviously make this path design, but I thought it looks nice. At this point, 4 hours of my footage got corrupt and I couldn't get it back at all. No matter what I tried everything I could, just couldn't get it back. I know it's only 4 hours, but in this last 4 hours, I finished the last 3 enclosures. So I'm going to have to just time-lapse them with the replay mod, as luckily that didn't get corrupt. The first one was meant to be the ocelot and parrot enclosure. And then, yes, I know some of you are probably screaming at me in the comments, ocelots kill parrots. Yep, didn't know that. So the parrots got moved to the panda enclosure instead. Then I moved on to the cat enclosure. And I don't know if any of you have cats or know much about cats, but they have these little cat trees that they climb up. You know, cats, they like to climb stuff. So I used a scaffolding, some fence posts and that to try and make it look like them cat trees. I don't know, do you think it looks kind of similar? I think it looks alright. And then I added just some carpet around just to brighten the place up a bit so they can scratch on it and stuff. And then last but not least is the llama enclosure. This one was very random, as, not gonna lie, I had no clue what llama's like, and I didn't really bother to look it up, so this is what they're getting. I think it looks pretty good. Tell me, let me know, please. Now, it's time to collect these last few animals to complete these last 3 enclosures in the zoo. And with those done, I thought I'd change this back wall to more of a feature wall, as I have just kept the rest of it stone as it is underground, so I thought it was necessary. But this one, I thought I would change it to the deep slate bricks. And then for the final land animal of this build, as I don't know if you saw earlier when I was showcasing what the zoo is going to be set out like, I said turtles are going to be free roaming. And yeah, so I headed over, found the nearest turtles I could, and just sat there for a little while and bred them up a little bit. And I managed to get 8 eggs, so then I headed back to base, put some sand down, and I started letting them hatch. Whilst I wait for them to hatch, it was finally time to start work on the exit tunnel, and this is the penultimate part of the zoo. And also by far my favourite part of the build. I started out by digging out loads of room. I needed a good bit of space for this project, as in my mind I wanted a walkthrough tunnel where you get a full view the whole way round of the aquarium, as a lot of aquariums do have. And like I said, this requires a lot of room. I then got some glass and I started marking out the tunnel, as I didn't want to dig too much out, more than I needed to. I wanted to work out how big I was actually going to build this. For the outside walls, I wanted to use light blue concrete to try and blend in with the water, so I quickly just got some of that here. Luckily I already had loads from my sand duper. And after quite a bit of time digging out and placing lots and lots of blocks, which I won't bore you with, this is what I ended up with. But all I need to do now for this build is the floor. So the sides that are going to be filled with water, it made sense to use sand, as that is what is usually in the ocean. And for the path in the middle, obviously I used the trusty old reliable path that I've been doing for the rest of the build. Now that that's all done, I started filling it up with the water, which if you didn't know, you need to be doing layer by layer. Otherwise, they won't turn into solid water blocks. However, I did only go up so high, as I still needed to decorate and put the fishes in there. So I didn't want to keep drowning or swimming around. It just made my life a bit easier. So now that that's all ready to be decorated, I headed over to a coral reef, which was actually quite far away from my base, but luckily I found one previously. And I started collecting a variety of coral fans and tropical fish. After quite a bit of time collecting up a few shulkers of decorations and fishes, it was time to head back down and start decorating. As I got back to my base, for some reason, I've never had this happen before, my character just couldn't walk and would only do this. I thought it was quite funny, I had to show you guys. So then I started by randomly placing all of the different coloured fans onto the floor. And then after that, I got the different coral blocks and just started randomly placing them as well. Also adding the sea pickles on top and around, which I then also added more coral fans too. Obviously different colours, just to make it very bright and vibrant. And after finally adding some seagrass and kelp all along the floor, I grabbed my 7 shulker boxes of fish and put it all into this one side. And that's when I realised this would take a while. All that I had previously collected only covered one half, so that means I had to do all of that collecting all over again. And yes, before you ask and before you moan, I am using the same collecting clips because there's literally no point me going through all the footage again and all my replay mods just to pretty much find the exact same thing I've done again. Because where's the fun in that? But now that I've collected all of this again, I can finally do the same thing on the other side. Once I was happy with the amount of decorations and fishes in the build, I made my way round layer by layer, again filling up the rest of the room. And finally, it was complete. But I will save the cool time lapse for the end. But to finish the main part of the zoo off, there was just one tiny little thing I wanted to add. And that was a little pond for the turtles. I felt like, you know, it's a bit unfair. They do like going in the water. So I just added this nice little pond for them. And I think they enjoy it. Now, for the finale, it was the entrance. I started by moving the portal that I used to get all the animals over here to the front of the wall, as it was definitely still handy having a portal down here. I then wanted to build some sort of ticket station with the barriers going up, if that makes sense. I don't know if it kind of looks like it. I thought it looked pretty good. I then dug out the whole floor and added some iron bars into the wall to give it that zoo/prison feel. And to brighten it up slightly, I added a few grass patches dotted around, which I then bone milled to add some flowers and some grass, etc. And of course, I added my reliable path to the build. And last but not least was just a little tunnel that was keeping with the main theme of the whole underground base that I'd previously done in my last episode. If you haven't seen that, check it out in the description. But finally, after countless days and hours working on this, by the way, thank you for the comment. This is my ultimate underground zoo.